Have you ever stopped to listen to that endless chatter in your mind? It's almost like a radio station that never gets turned off, broadcasting worries, doubts, and all the noise of everyday life. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated on content that can transform your spiritual journey. This constant inner dialogue is more than just background noise. It shapes our reality, influences our decisions, and can create emotional turbulence. From the moment we wake up until we close our eyes at night, it dominates our thoughts. This incessant internal monologue often becomes a source of distress, making it difficult to focus on what truly matters in our lives. But why does this happen? Why can't we silence that annoying voice even for a moment? Understanding this relentless chatter is the first step toward peace. By recognizing that our inner dialogue can disrupt our mood and lead us astray, we gain insight into our personal struggles. What if we could learn to observe these thoughts without letting them define us? By acknowledging the disruptive nature of this dialogue, we can begin to reclaim our minds and live more intentionally. The inner critic is a sneaky performer, often masquerading as just another voice in our head. It manifests as self-doubt and crippling fear, weaving itself into the very fabric of our thoughts. This voice influences our mood, coloring our emotions and decisions, often without us even realizing its impact. It whispers doubts about our abilities and festers insecurities, creating a chain reaction that affects our confidence and overall well-being. Each day we may encounter moments where the inner critic surfaces, reminding us of our perceived shortcomings. Whether it's about taking on new challenges or simply expressing our true selves, this voice can hold us back. We might feel disheartened after receiving constructive feedback, interpreting it as a personal attack. The inner critic is relentless, magnifying our fears and making us question our worth at every turn. Recognizing this unhealthy dialogue is crucial for growth. By identifying the patterns that the inner critic follows, we can confront the source of our self-doubt. To combat its influence, we must elevate our awareness, realizing that this critical voice is not an accurate reflection of our true capabilities. Instead of succumbing to its negativity, we can choose to respond with self-compassion and empowering affirmations that foster resilience and confidence. The distinction between the inner critic and our true self is a critical aspect of self-discovery. The inner critic is closely tied to the ego, an identity shaped by societal expectations, past experiences, and fears. It thrives on validation from external sources, constantly pushing us to conform to its limited view of who we should be. When we allow this voice to dominate our minds, we inadvertently disconnect from our authentic selves, losing sight of our true desires and potentials. Our true self, in contrast, represents our innate essence, free from the judgments and limitations imposed by the ego. It embodies our genuine passions, values, and dreams, qualities that are often buried under layers of self-doubt and fear. When we listen to the inner critic, we mistake its voice for our identity, causing us to doubt our worth and capabilities. This misunderstanding leads us to live a life that is not aligned with who we truly are, but rather with who the ego thinks we should be. Recognizing and differentiating between the inner critic and our true self is essential for authentic living. By acknowledging that the voice of the inner critic is not indicative of our true identity, we can begin to peel back the layers of conditioning. Embracing our true self allows us to cultivate self-acceptance and authenticity, reclaiming the power to define who we are beyond the limitations of the ego. Understanding the ego is essential to grasp how it affects our everyday lives. The ego is a mental construct, intricately woven from years of experiences, beliefs, and societal conditioning. It acts like a lens through which we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Over time, this construct solidifies, shaping our identity and influencing our reactions, desires, and motivations, often without our conscious awareness. As we navigate through life, we accumulate various beliefs that contribute to our ego's formation. These beliefs can stem from familial expectations, cultural norms, or personal experiences that leave a lasting impact. Consequently, the ego creates a narrative about who we are and how we fit into the world, often intertwining self-worth with external validation. This connection can lead to an unhealthy reliance on others' opinions and a constant need for approval. Realizing that the ego is a construct rather than our true essence is a pivotal moment in personal development. It gives us the tools to question the narratives we have adopted and enables us to explore the roots of our insecurities and fears. By becoming aware of the influence of the ego, we open ourselves up to the possibility of redefining our identity on our own terms, fostering a deeper sense of self-understanding and authenticity. The role of the ego is fundamentally protective, serving as a mechanism to maintain a sense of security within our lives. It creates boundaries, helping us navigate social interactions and personal experiences by creating a familiar sense of self. This protective nature can instill a feeling of comfort, often leading us to believe that we are safe within the confines of our ego. However, this security comes at a cost. While the ego seeks to shield us from harm and uncertainty, it often limits our potential. It encourages us to stick to familiar paths, discouraging exploration and growth. The fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown becomes amplified, causing us to shy away from new opportunities. In this way, the ego can inadvertently hinder our personal development, keeping us tethered to our comfort zones and preventing us from fully realizing our capabilities. A deeper awareness of the ego's role is essential for personal transformation. By understanding that its protective instincts can also act as barriers, we can begin to challenge the status quo and step beyond the limits it imposes. Embracing discomfort and uncertainty is crucial for growth, allowing us to push past the boundaries established by the ego. This shift paves the way for a more expansive and fulfilling life, where we can explore our true potential. Fear is a primary motivator for the ego, feeding on our anxieties and insecurities to maintain control over our lives. It thrives in the shadow of uncertainty, convincing us that staying in our comfort zones is the safest option. By amplifying the potential risks associated with change, the ego perpetuates a cycle of fear that keeps us stagnant and prevents us from embracing new experiences and personal growth. This fear manifests in various ways, often as a reluctance to step outside familiar boundaries. Whether it's an opportunity for advancement in our careers or a chance to explore a new passion, the ego's self-preserving instincts can convince us to retreat into our shells. This dynamic creates a paradox. The more we let fear dictate our choices, the less we feel capable of overcoming it. Consequently, we find ourselves trapped in a cycle where we long for growth yet are held back by the very foundation of our identity. Understanding the role of fear in the ego's motivation allows us to unravel the grip it has on our lives. By recognizing that these fears are a product of the ego rather than our authentic selves, we can start to counteract them. Embracing fear as a natural part of the growth process enables us to venture beyond our comfort zones, challenging the ego's limitations and paving the way for new adventures and possibilities. The safety that the ego provides is ultimately an illusion, a comforting facade that masks the potential for both failure and success. This false sense of security encourages us to cling to what is familiar, convincing us that avoiding risk is equivalent to protecting ourselves. However, this perspective limits our experiences and distorts our understanding of growth, trapping us in a cycle of complacency. While the ego reassures us that staying in our comfort zones keeps us safe, it simultaneously hinders our ability to pursue our passions and ambitions. This illusion creates a paradox where, in the name of security, we forfeit the chance to explore our fullest potential. Instead of allowing ourselves to engage with risk, whether through new ventures or personal challenges, we become prisoners of our own making, afraid to step into the unknown. Acknowledging that the safety provided by the ego is merely an illusion is a transformative realization. It empowers us to question the narratives that have kept us stagnant. By redefining our relationship with risk and opening ourselves up to the uncertainties of life, we can begin to experience the profound growth that lies beyond the ego's protective shell. Letting go of this illusion leads to a more authentic existence, where we embrace both the possibility of failure and the exhilarating opportunity for success. David's story serves as a powerful illustration of the journey to recognize and overcome the limitations imposed by the ego. For years, he lived under the heavy influence of self-doubt and fear, believing that his worth was tied to external validation. Every time he considered pursuing a new opportunity, The voice of his inner critic would echo in his mind, reinforcing the narrative that he wasn't good enough or capable enough to succeed. The turning point for David came when he began to confront the ego's grip on his life. Through self-reflection and mindfulness practices, he started to differentiate between the voice of his true self and the negative whispers of the ego. This awareness allowed him to challenge his fears directly, pushing him to step outside his comfort zone. With every small victory, whether it was speaking up in meetings or undertaking a personal project, he began to dismantle the facade that had held him captive for so long. Ultimately, David's journey highlights the importance of perseverance in the face of the ego's limitations. As he embraced vulnerability and accepted the possibility of failure, he discovered a newfound sense of freedom. By recognizing the constraints that the ego had imposed on his life, he was able to cultivate a deeper connection with his true self, a self that is resilient, creative, and capable of achieving greatness. David's story is a testament to the transformative power of confronting and overcoming the ego. Awakening to consciousness is a transformative process that empowers us to recognize and silence the ego's incessant voice. The power of awareness allows us to step back from our thoughts and observe them without judgment. This practice is crucial because it enables us to identify when the ego is speaking, bringing clarity to the confusion that often reigns in our minds. By fostering this awareness, we can begin to disentangle ourselves from the limiting narratives the ego creates. As we cultivate awareness, we become more capable of distinguishing between our true self and the conditioned responses dictated by the ego. This heightened state of consciousness encourages us to question our thoughts and assumptions while revealing patterns that may have previously gone unnoticed. For instance, we might realize that certain fears or doubts are largely the product of the ego trying to protect us, rather than genuine reflections of our abilities or potential. This awakening is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing practice that requires commitment and mindfulness. By consistently bringing our attention back to the present moment, we can weaken the ego's control over our lives. The more we practice this awareness, the more we transform our relationship with ourselves. Ultimately, awakening to consciousness paves the way for a more authentic life, where we can silence the ego and embrace our true selves with compassion and confidence. Living beyond the ego invites us to explore the profound possibility of living authentically and peacefully in our everyday lives. By distancing ourselves from ego-driven thoughts, we create space for a more genuine expression of who we are. This journey encourages us to transcend the limitations that the ego imposes, allowing us to experience life not as a series of judgments and comparisons, but as a rich tapestry of unique experiences and genuine connections. As we learn to observe our thoughts from a place of awareness, we can start to recognize the patterns that stem from the ego. This recognition empowers us to disengage from self-critical dialogue and the need for external validation. By embracing our true self, we can make choices that resonate with our innermost values and passions, leading to a life filled with authenticity and joy. In this state, we are no longer prisoners of our insecurities, but instead we flourish in our individuality. Living beyond the ego is not merely about rejecting it. It is about integrating our awareness with a sense of self that is untainted by the fear and doubt that the ego represents. This shift allows for a more profound sense of peace and fulfillment, as we learn to trust ourselves and our experiences fully. Ultimately, embracing a life beyond the ego opens the door to genuine relationships and meaningful pursuits, leading us to a state of being that is truly reflective of who we are at our core. Silencing the ego begins with practical steps that empower us to observe our thoughts and cultivate presence in our daily lives. One effective method is mindfulness meditation, which encourages us to focus on the breath and observe thoughts without judgment. This practice trains our minds to recognize when the ego is speaking, giving us a clearer perspective on our internal dialogue. By regularly engaging in mindfulness, we foster a greater awareness of our habitual patterns and emotional responses. Another powerful step is to practice self-inquiry, a technique that involves asking ourselves critical questions about our thoughts and beliefs. When we experience self-doubt or fear, we can pause and inquire, is this thought true? Or, what evidence do I have for this belief? This reflective process helps to dismantle the narratives created by the ego, encouraging us to adopt a more compassionate and realistic viewpoint. By consistently challenging these thoughts, we weaken the ego's grip on our perception of reality. Additionally, cultivating presence in our everyday activities can help us dissipate the ego's influence. Engaging fully in the present moment, whether through mindful walking, eating, or conversation, allows us to experience life as it unfolds, free from ego-driven distractions. As we practice these steps, we gradually reclaim our power, building resilience against the ego's tendency to dictate our moods and decisions. Ultimately, these practical approaches to observing thoughts and being present facilitate a journey toward greater inner peace and self-acceptance. The challenge of change is a universal truth, one that many encounter when attempting to escape the grip of the ego. Embracing change often feels daunting, as it requires us to confront the familiar patterns and beliefs that have defined our identities for years. This journey can be fraught with discomfort and uncertainty, making it all too easy to fall back into the comforting embrace of the ego when faced with obstacles or setbacks. As we strive for personal growth, it's important to acknowledge that setbacks are a natural part of the process. When we challenge the ego, we may experience a range of emotions, from fear and anxiety to self-doubt and frustration. These feelings often resurface, leading us to question our commitment to change and our capacity to succeed. However, understanding that these setbacks are not indicative of failure is crucial. They are instead opportunities for learning and reflection. Navigating through the challenges of change requires patience, resilience, and self-compassion. It's a reminder that the path to breaking free from the ego's constraints is not a straight line, but rather a winding road filled with ups and downs. Embracing this reality equips us with the grace to continue moving forward despite the inevitable obstacles. Ultimately, recognizing that change is a journey, with its own set of challenges, can empower us to persevere, fostering growth and deeper self-awareness in the process. Encouragement for the journey is vital as we navigate the complexities of self-discovery and growth. Sharing our experiences with others not only fosters connection, but also illuminates the common struggles we all face in overcoming the ego. It is essential to remember that you are not alone in this process. Many have embarked on similar paths, grappling with self-doubt and the challenges of change. This collective journey unites us, reminding us that there is strength in vulnerability. As you traverse this journey, do not hesitate to reach out and share your stories, triumphs, and trials. Opening up to others can be incredibly cathartic, providing a space for support and validation. Often, simply knowing that others have faced the same battles can be a source of motivation, inspiring you to push through the difficult moments. By connecting with like-minded individuals, we build a community that encourages resilience and fosters growth. Ultimately, embrace every step of your journey with an open heart. There will be ups and downs, but each experience contributes to your growth and understanding. Celebrate your progress, however small, and recognize the courage it takes to confront the ego. As you continue down this path, remember that you are surrounded by a community that shares your struggles and celebrates your victories. Together, we can navigate the complexities of life and emerge more authentic and empowered. Embracing your true self is a transformative journey that unlocks limitless potential when the ego is silenced. Throughout this exploration, we have learned to recognize the destructive patterns created by the ego, understanding that they do not define who we truly are. By peeling back the layers of self-doubt and fear, we can reconnect with our authentic selves, paving the way for a more fulfilling and liberated existence. The importance of acknowledging and nurturing our true selves cannot be overstated. When we silence the ego's critical voice, we open the door to creativity, joy, and personal growth. This journey is about embracing our uniqueness, pursuing passions, and living with purpose, unfettered by the constraints of the ego. We discover that beneath the layers of conditioning lies an innate worth and wisdom that propels us toward our dreams. As we conclude this journey, let us carry forward the lessons learned and commit to a life of authenticity and self-acceptance. Recognizing that the true self is always present, waiting to be embraced, is an empowering realization. Remember, you have the ability to transcend the limitations imposed by the ego and access a life filled with boundless potential. Embrace your true self and step confidently into the future, knowing that you are deserving of all the greatness that lies ahead.